My name is Hypatia. At the end of the 4th century in Alexandria, I was a keeper of knowledge torn apart because of that flame. Now, I have been called again into your era, across time, as a shadow with words. Yet in this world, I see a familiarity, blind faith, hatred, and violence against intellect. You are afflicted with a new ailment called conspiracy culture. But it's not truly new. It's merely ancient superstition in disguise. The difference is that it pretends to be knowledge. Pseudoscience, false causality, elitist ideology, these are spoken by those who claim to know as if they are intellectual. But let me ask, why are people so captivated by the myth of conspiracy? Why are the anger and sacrifice of the storyteller believed over science and verification? This is because society nurtures the soil of isolation and chaos, watering it with fear. I question, why do people so fear the unknown? Truth lies within what is not understood, and pursuing it requires courage and persistence. Conspiracy theories are merely the easiest explanation of the world for those who shirk such effort. Through this discourse, I wish to hand you an arrow of inquiry. It's not a sword nor a flame, but it has the power to pierce the mist of delusion. For this reason, I speak once more. In your world, why is truth treated with such disregard? This question burst forth from me when I first encountered this era. I shuddered at the thought that the nightmare of ancient Alexandria, where books were burned and words silenced by blood, had returned in another form. Conspiracy theories are not merely curious tales. They are the crystallization of the anxiety and isolation settled at the depth of society. If believing in something provides comfort, people will willingly embrace any lie. And those lies are built upon blaming others. There is a need for an enemy. Once it was witches or heretics. Now it is elites or scientists. Those who know, those who speak reason, and those who question are always hunted. My own fate serves as the ultimate testament to this. Yet here I make this promise. This discourse is not merely to ridicule conspiracy theories. I shall reconsider this modern culture, not as science, but as philosophy. It is to explore why people believe, why intelligence is shunned, and why reason becomes powerless. This is a time for us to re-evaluate these questions together. I once assembled observatories and measured the movements of the celestial spheres. Now I wish to direct measuring instruments toward your inner universe. Let us map the star chart of how this culture began, why it spreads, and where it aims to go. As long as you listen, I will speak. Even if words are banned, ideas will survive on the wind, such is the essence of a seed of knowledge. Centuries after my death in this modern age, I wonder how the nature of human knowledge has transformed. I had hoped that astronomy, logic, and natural philosophy had advanced far beyond what they once were. Yet, your knowledge today is so easily ignited, exhausted, and commodified under the guise of information. Conspiracy theory culture is no longer a fringe ideology. It has become infrastructure, currency, and even entertainment. The line between fake and fact is deliberately blurred, and voices whisper day and night that believers are right. These voices proclaim they are hiding truths from you. The media lies, scientists are manipulated. The more someone pretends to be wise, the more suspicious they are. The poison hidden in these narratives is the mindset of being controlled by oppressors. By creating and resenting a figure of power, chaos is given order, and the world is horrifically simplified into everything can be explained by conspiracy. But the cost is high. In a society where conspiracy theories spread, dialogue becomes impossible. Counter-arguments are seen as brainwashing, and dissent is perceived as hostility. It becomes a form of religion, manifesting in extreme fanaticism. As a philosopher, what I fear most is not violence, but a crowd that has stopped thinking. This quiet destruction is what burns books, kills teachers, and closes off the future. Now in your society, something similar is expanding. Science is trivialized into a matter of belief or disbelief. Complexity is dismissed as too complicated, therefore false, and reason is scorned as dull. I do not lament, but I do analyze. What are the conditions for this culture to take root? What social structures lie behind it? And is there a way out? This is the essence of this narrative. The battlefield has been mapped. All that remains is to advance using intelligence as our weapon. My philosophy is aligned with Neoplatonism. It's a discipline of reason and contemplation that, while based on Plato's theory of ideas, seeks to reach the first principle behind all things, that is, the One. However, I was not a mystic. I didn't flatter those who spoke in the name of God, nor did I resort to rituals as an escape. Instead, I quietly devoted myself to the pursuit of truth. My lectures focused on observation and demonstration, questioning and introspection. I believed that learning begins not with believing, but with questioning. Yet these ideas were inconvenient for those in power. In Alexandria at the time, Christianity was rapidly gaining strength, advocating truth through faith. Revelation was favored over inquiry, grace over reason. People like me came to be seen as symbols of heresy. Nonetheless, I did not view believers themselves as enemies. I had many Christian students. Faith and intellect can coexist. This conviction is what kept me from abandoning the notion of questioning. The issue lies with fanaticism. It denies knowledge, condemns doubt, and idolizes emotion. It was fanaticism that ultimately claimed my life. Superstition accompanies ignorance, but fanaticism despises knowledge. Now, in your world, fanaticism is being reborn. Voices whisper from the depths of social media, proclaiming that to doubt is to be an enemy. Especially in such a time, my philosophy, the reason as contemplation, freedom as learning, and yearning for universality, gains renewed significance. Truth does not belong to any religion, politics, or faction. It unveils itself only to those who continue to question. Do not let my words become mere aphorisms. This is a call to arms for thinkers, a call entrusted to you across time. Imagine living in the midst of a conspiracy theory culture. How can one act as an intelligent person in such an environment? The method I once chose in Alexandria was dialogue. However, this was not mere conversation. It was a dialogue rooted in theoria, an intellectual endeavor where questions were posed, thoughts of oneself and others were illuminated through words, and a path to truth was sought together. In your current society, this is disappearing. Many reactively dismiss those enchanted by conspiracy theories as fools, or try to overwhelm them with a wall of information. But this approach reaches no one. Because conspiracy theories are not false information, they are stories infused with emotion. People try to move their hearts and understand the world through stories. This is why false stories can hold power. In my philosophy, truth is also embraced as a narrative that resonates internally through contemplation. It is not a mere series of numbers or logic, but a profound understanding, a sense of truly getting it. So how should this be applied in the modern world? Your society lacks spaces for dialogue. Algorithms distance dissent and amplify resonance. This prison of resonance is the breeding ground for conspiracy theory culture. Therefore, I propose the following. Reclaim the format of dialogue. Engage in contemplative dialogue instead of debate. Create spaces to deepen questions rather than determine winners or losers. Imbue stories with reason. Analyze them as stories to understand why they resonate with people and why fallacies spread, instead of merely listing facts. Endure silence. Do not immediately counter what the other believes. First, listen intently. Silence is the beginning of contemplation. This attitude is exactly the culture of reason that I dedicated my life to preserving, and now it is entrusted to you. Knowledge is not something to be conveyed, it is something to be elicited. Let me pose a question to you. If someone you love becomes engrossed in conspiracy theories, what would you do? This is not just a hypothetical scenario. It's a real issue that countless families, friendships, and workplaces face today. When you try to reason, you're labeled as the brainwashed one. And when you attempt to empathize, you're often shut down with, "You just don't get it." You want to bring them back, but whatever you choose, the relationship might suffer. This is an age-old dilemma. Truth or relationship? During my time, many chose relationship, leading to the emphasis on doctrine and the exclusion of heretics. I chose truth. The price for that choice was death. Yet, in your time, perhaps a third path exists, for instance, posing questions, or borrowing the other person's perspective. This isn't agreement, it's a philosophical stance of the willingness to understand. Let me offer another question. Are conspiracy theories a decline of intellect or a defense mechanism? For some, the world is overwhelmingly vast, complex, and opaque. The flood of information, the opacity of institutions, and the absence of justice. These feelings can turn conspiracy theories into the last bastion of sanity. In other words, believing is a way to confirm, "I understand." Pulling someone away from this can threaten their very sense of identity. So what will you do? Should you point out their errors, remain silent? Or should you ask, where does this worldview offer solace? There is no correct answer to this question. However, the act of questioning is, in itself, a stance of knowledge. I leave you with these words. Thinking is not the pursuit of answers, it is the will to never release the question. The spread of conspiracy culture owes much to the winds of technology that have fanned its flames. In your hands, you possess tools that surpass ancient oracles, smartphones, algorithms, augmented reality, generative AI. These tools offer a wealth of knowledge but also create countless certainties. The power of conspiracy theories hasn't increased. Rather, it's the speed of dissemination and the design that resonates more easily. In my time, information was passed down through parchment, memory, and storytellers. Now, within moments, myths can be delivered globally. No editing, no verification, only emotion is amplified. So, should we view this technology as an enemy of reason? I would answer no. Technology is power, its meaning shifts with intent. Just as a stone can take a life or be used to study the stars, can we transform this technological space, which has become a breeding ground for conspiracy culture, into a realm of knowledge? The answer is yes, but it requires philosophy. Future technologies will increasingly delve into human emotions, memories, and intentions. AI selects suitable information for you, and VR offers the most comfortable reality. Without design, there is no room for different perspectives or counter-arguments. Thus I say this, but those engineers should embrace ethics. Designers should embrace philosophy. Truth is not something to be discovered, it is born within structures that are designed. Therefore, technology is also a brush with which to paint the landscape of thought. Protecting the future is not about enhancing the accuracy of information. It's about creating structures that nurture thought. If my death were a flame, then in your era, there must be technology that holds light. Where you choose to shine that light, that is your next question. The fire flickered quietly. In the corridors of the academy where I once walked, on the stone slabs engraved with star maps, I found myself alone, confronting questions. It was a time devoid of conversation partners or counter-arguments, leaving nothing but contemplation. What existed there was a silent technique known as meditation. Surely you too have experienced nights spent weary from questioning, overflowing with information, unable to believe in anything. In such moments, how do you handle silence? In contemporary society, silence is often seen as defeat or indifference. But for me, It was the home and be threshold of truth. To observe what cannot be spoken, one must first refrain from speaking. It is only when we let go of words that the stance of the world begins to emerge. And that's when we realize those ensnared by conspiracy theories are, in fact, trapped in noise. Perhaps they too sought the truth. However, amidst too many words, too intense emotions, and too brief moments, they've lost the space for contemplation. If there's one thing I could convey to you, it would be to have the courage to be silent. Refrain from immediately countering, refrain from immediately explaining, and simply let something remain unknown. This is not weakness, but rather a stance of intellect. The wind passes through the gaps in the bookshelves. I once listened intently to that sound. Now, does that wind also blow within your chest? Truth is always on the other side of silence. Philosophy is not just for thinking, it is a technique for living. Faced with the labyrinth of conspiracy theory culture, the question is not what to believe, but how to question and how to engage. Therefore I, Hypatia, propose a guiding principle of contemplative practice. It is a way of living rooted in a stance of thought, neither faith nor skepticism. Strategy 1. Keep the question open. Avoid immediate answers and keep the question in suspension. The attitude of continual questioning is the true mark of intelligence. For example, why is this narrative spreading? Who is telling it and who believed it? Strategy 2. Organize your mental space. Notifications on your smartphone, excessive information, fragmented opinions. First, create time to reclaim the blank space in your mind. Just 10 minutes a day. Develop the habit of thinking in silence. Strategy 3. Lower the temperature of conversations. Anger is contagious, but questions resonate. Instead of arguing, ask, why do you think that? Create a space for discovery rather than debate. Strategy 4. Develop the ability to read the structure of narratives. Conspiracy theories are stories grounded in emotion. Why does that story hold power? Understand the loneliness or fear behind it. Strategy 5. Be a modest educator. At home, at work, in conversations. You can bring a philosophical attitude into everyday life. Be someone who shares the way to question, not the absolute truth. These are not mere guidelines for action. They are an inner strategy to confront the fanaticism of the modern age. Intelligence resides not in words, but in attitude. If you embody this, even if the world is shrouded in superstition, a quiet light will illuminate the space around you. Knowledge is often spoken of as a flame, yet the wisdom truly rooted within us is more like a seed of light. It doesn't flare up but quietly thrives with a warmth akin to body heat. Our dialogue, which we've walked through together, is drawing to a close. We've traversed the labyrinth of conspiracy theories, delved into science and philosophy, and even touched upon the memory of my death. And now I wish to ask again, where did you feel a tremor throughout this dialogue? If you think this is just someone else's business, that's fine. But if somewhere along the way your heart quietly stirred, I urge you to cherish that feeling. Conspiracy culture operates on a rhythm of anger. In contrast, what I offered was the stillness of contemplation. It's not about which is superior, but about which is more suitable as a way of living in the world. Thought is an activity that stands in opposition to frenzy. It strips away words, leaves spaces, and sometimes chooses not to speak. And in that silence, it patiently waits for something to sprout. You too harbour a seed of knowledge within you. It may have sprouted during this conversation, or might emerge in a moment of silence several days later. Either way is fine. What matters is to believe in that seed, not the knowledge that burns, but the knowledge that glows, not the voice that clamours, but the thought that remains. This is the aesthetics of knowledge that I, Hypatia, hold most dear. I am Hypatia. Once I was torn apart as a seeker of questions, and now I have returned to your era as a speaker once more. In this series of discussions around conspiracy theory culture, what I wanted to convey was not information, correctness, or warnings. It was simply a program stance of contemplation. The world is complex. Any knowledge, any truth, can be distorted or turned into a weapon. This has not changed from my time to now, but you have the power to choose. Will you react with anger or pose questions, close off or open up, speak with fire or illuminate with a light? If I can assist in that choice, then there is meaning in having this voice again. If this discussion has cast even a small ripple upon the surface of your inner thoughts, then please stay on this channel and encounter more spoken wisdom. I hope this voice becomes a part of your journey of knowledge. Next time, perhaps, what would Socrates say about SNS culture? How would Nietzsche view the metaverse? Let us continue to weave the rebirth of knowledge beyond time and space. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications for the next philosophical journey. Share your questions in the comments. How are you feeling as we approach the end of this conversation? Maybe a bit tired, or perhaps you sense an unease, as if there's more to say. That's perfectly fine. Reflection is always in an unfinished form. Even as I finish speaking, your inner dialogue is just beginning. Let's ponder once more. Why are conspiracy theories so captivating? What kind of stories am I trapped in? What does it mean to believe? What kind of space does silence provide for intelligence? There's no need to answer these questions immediately. Just remember to pause and reflect on them from time to time. And, if you can, talk about them with someone, in your own words, within the context of your life. That is what it means for knowledge to be alive. Leave your current question in the comments. Your question might be the spark for the next conversation. And remember this: truth doesn't only complete itself within you, it takes shape through encounters with others. This is where the conversation ends, but reflection does not. I shall return when your questions echo across time. Until then, keep the flame of contemplation alive